My name is Cheryl Price, and I'm 29 years old. On opening night, the lights in my dining room glowed low and honey warm, and the air wore butter, garlic, and roasted tomatoes like a perfume meant for homecomings. I'd pressed my chef's coat so sharp it felt like a promise. At the big table near the pass, I'd tied twine around linen napkins as if Pinterest were a religion and I needed absolution. I called it the family table. I even wrote those words in chalk on a little sign, taped a sprig of rosemary to the corner like I could season people into showing up. They didn't. At 7:15, a retired couple shuffled in, peered around, and asked if we sold used books. I seated them anyway, poured water like ceremony, and sent out warm bread because kindness should not depend on comprehension. By 8 on talk, 2 teenagers arrived, disappointed by the lack of bubble tea, then stayed because, apparently, my sconces make flawless selfies. I sent out more bread. Their laughter skipped across the room like flat stones. Meanwhile, the family table sat, a set of 6 empty chairs, and 3 generations of would-be commentary stuck in a group chat no one had the courage to unmute. I wiped a non-existent crumb from the wood and told myself to breathe. Any minute now, I thought. Mom runs late. Dad pretends punctuality is for people who didn't buy during a buyer's market. My older sister posts corgi videos for a living and is probably deep frying a tutu. But somewhere under the starch of my coat, I knew. They were not coming. I plated rosemary chicken with my hands shaking just enough to make the garnish look like a sketch. I tasted sauces, adjusted salt, told Hannah on salads she was perfect, told Wes on grill he was doing great. They were. We all were. It was everything I'd worked for, except the people I'd worked in defiance of. At 9:47 p.m., the room exhaled. I flipped the sign to closed, blew out the last candle, and started wiping tables that had never been touched. The quiet felt like a verdict. I was halfway through stacking ramekins when my phone buzzed once, then again, then 5 times in a row. Mom, Dad, my sister. 2 cousins who used the word entrepreneur like a Halloween costume. Before I could open the messages, the front door creaked. My heart misfired. For a half second, I pictured pearls and afterthought bouquets, apologies framed as surprises. Instead, Joe barreled in, wearing pajama pants patterned with flying pizzas, clutching a half-eaten pint of Cherry Garcia like it was a sacred relic. Babe, she panted, you need to see this right now. Nice to see you too, I said, because sarcasm is how I keep from cracking. Joe thrust her phone into my hands. On the screen, a full-length review from Harper Lane, the city's most merciless food critic. The woman who'd once described a fillet as shoe leather in a tux. Headline, Milo's Table, the unsuspecting gem that just redefined comfort food. Milo's Table, my restaurant. Named for Grandpa Milo, who taught me food is a language for the days you don't have words. I didn't breathe. Joe watched my face like fireworks. 5 stars. Line after line glowed. Textures, restraint, warmth. A hug for the soul that doesn't smother. I reread the paragraph about the duck glaze twice, then a third time, because the part of me that expects humiliation keeps failing to metabolize praise. Another buzz. Mom, saw the review. We need to talk about your restaurant. A pause. Dad, impressive. When can we stop by? Sister, so proud. Can we come tomorrow? Cousin, OMG, I knew it. Hashtag foodie family. I had to laugh. The family group chat, quieter than a salad at a barbecue, erupted as if they'd been at my side through the burns, the lenders, the broken lease that left me sleeping on flour sacks in the back room for a week. Joe leaned against the bar and dug a spoon into her ice cream. You gonna reply? Not yet, I said. Let them marinate. I sank onto a stool, untied my apron, and stared at the family table like it might clap back. The truth curled in my chest like steam. I felt tired. Not the kind a night's sleep solves, but the kind carved by years of trying to be visible in a house that preferred mirrors. Remember my grandpa? I asked. Joe's mouth softened. The lasagna tyrant? The legend. I smiled. Grandpa Milo hummed jazz while peeling onions, saved the best cut for whoever looked the saddest, and wrote me a note when he died at 16 words long. Feed the people, even when they don't say thank you. I used to think he meant strangers. Now I think he meant blood. The door chimed. Wes peeked in, tossed me a salute, and disappeared into the night. I checked the POS one last time, fiddled with the espresso machine just to touch something warm. My phone lit again. This time, Adrian, my boyfriend, finally done with a disaster site visit. How'd it go? I'm still in a hard hat. Proud of you already. I sent him a photo of the empty family table and a single line. They didn't come. She did. Then a screenshot of the 5 stars. We traded 2 more messages, his steady tone a metronome I could breathe to. A second later, his ex-girlfriend, still inexplicably in my orbit through shared friends, posted a story. So excited for my friend's new restaurant. Can't wait to come through. She hadn't texted me once. I muted the story without ceremony. Jo licked her spoon like punctuation. We could still give your mom free bread, she said. Or charge double, I said. Make them sit by the kitchen door where it smells like onions and consequences. She grinned, spoken like a woman who just learned she's undeniable. I drifted upstairs to my tiny apartment and reheated mushroom risotto in a plastic container, because irony tastes better with Parmesan. I ate on the couch in silence. No clinking glasses, no messy hug from a sister smelling like dry shampoo in theater. Just the faint scent of thyme still stitched into my coat. At some point between bites, I smiled, because the recognition didn't come from someone rehearsing love. It came from a stranger who owed me nothing. Harper Lane didn't know the math of my overdrafts, or how I bled into a stack of napkins once and finished service anyway. She tasted the food and said it was enough. I slept badly, woke early. Open in the restaurant, 2 hours ahead of schedule, not because we needed prep, but because I needed to stage my heart. I filled water glasses with the precision of a person who does not trust herself to swing. By noon they arrived. Mom and Dad first, dressed like country club brunch. My sister behind them, camera already out. A cousin I hadn't seen since the vote not to fund culinary school, not a real degree, trailed like a shadow. Oh, wow, Mom said, clutching a knockoff handbag like it might faint. This is adorable. Adorable, I echoed, like a pig in a bow. Dad nodded, slow. His eyes did the Zillow sweep. Didn't expect it to look this real. We almost installed the ball pit, I said. But then I remembered you prefer open concept. They missed the family table sign. Or pretended to. They chose a window seat for the light. I sent out the things I grew up eating. Garlic herb chicken, butternut squash ravioli, espresso mousse in mason jars because sometimes I am, in fact, an overachiever with twine. They moaned like I was feeding them bartered moonlight. My sister filmed me plating a dish. Chef vibes, she chirped, like that salt guy. You mean Salt Bay? I asked. Yeah, she said, but more Midwestern. I kept my face smooth, the way you do when you're telling your hands not to betray your mouth. They spun a narrative as easily as they stirred foam, how they'd always known, always believed, how they were protective when they discouraged me, how this, all of this, was proof that family knows. I collected their plates, set down the bill as gently as a prayer, and said, "Let me know when you're ready." Silence, the kind that rings. Mom blinked first. "Cheryl, don't be silly." "I'm not," I said. Dad's mouth flattened. "We're your family." "Exactly," I said, folding the check and placing it on the edge of the table. "And family supports, even when there isn't a review." A fork clicked on porcelain like a gun misfiring. My sister fumbled with her banking app. I wasn't angry. Anger had burned off years ago, like butter left too long in a hot pan. What remained was something drier, a crust I could stand on. I didn't wait to see what they did. I turned toward the kitchen lights and breathed in citrus, garlic, and the last of my patience. Jo watched from the bar, arms tucked, eyes bright with the kind of loyalty money can't counterfeit. When I came back, this cash was there. My sister's caption was already live. Hatch family first with a white heart emoji. I wanted to report the hashtag for fraud. I locked up alone that night, heart a steady drum. On my way out, an email notification slid into view. Harper Lane's annual spotlight on rising chefs. Nominate now. I stared at it until the screen timed out. The city sparkled indifferent outside my window. For the first time in a long time, the indifference felt like freedom. The morning after their little photo op meal, I came in early again, not because I needed to prep, but because I needed to breathe. The air still smelled faintly of espresso mousse and pretense, a perfect blend of sweet and bitter. Jo was already there, perched at the counter with her laptop open and hair tied up like a general ready for war. "So, she said without looking up. How's the family digestion? Any allergic reactions to paying for once? I snorted. They left cash, actual paper bills. I might frame them as a relic. She grinned. You should. Call it Exhibit A, proof they're capable of transactional love. I didn't laugh. The joke hit too close. Because the truth was, after all that silence, all those years of skipped birthdays and backhanded comments, I wasn't angry. I was numb. Like my emotions had clocked out, left a be right back note, and never returned. Still, the restaurant had to move. There were deliveries to sign, herbs to trim, invoices to chase. I buried myself in routine until the ache dulled into a hum. By late afternoon, a text came through. Mom, we loved yesterday. So proud of you. Next time, dinner's on us. I stared at it for a long time. My thumb hovered over the screen, but I didn't reply. I'd learned that sometimes silence says more than words ever could. That evening, when Adrian stopped by, I was still wiping the same counter I'd already cleaned twice. He leaned in the doorway, still in his work clothes, steel-toed boots, a rolled-up sleeve, eyes that knew when to speak and when not to. You didn't answer her, he said softly. No, I replied. I don't owe a response for something that came 5 years late. He nodded. That's one of the things I loved about him. He didn't try to fix it. He just stood there, steady, the way kitchen floors should be. I poured him coffee, and we sat in quiet companionship, the kind that comes from shared exhaustion. Joe told me about last night, he said finally. You made them pay? I smirked. Damn right I did. He laughed. The real kind. The kind that makes you feel like you're not crazy for drawing boundaries. But beneath the laughter, something inside me was shifting. That dinner, their fake smiles, their soft rewrites of history, had lit something I didn't expect. Clarity. That's when the ideas started forming. Not revenge, not a spectacle, just truth served hot. By midnight, I was at my desk sketching out invitations. Black cardstock, cream lettering, handwritten names. Elegant. Final. Jo walked in, half asleep, toothbrush in her mouth. Tell me that's not a wedding invitation. I smiled. Worse, a guest list. For what? For a private dinner. She squinted. Like a secret supper club? Exactly. One night only, invite only. No plus ones unless they've cried in a walk-in freezer. She spat toothpaste into the sink and grinned. So, me. You get your own seat with your name in bold. That was how it began. The dinner that wasn't about proving anything, but about honoring the people who actually showed up. I wrote each name slowly, carefully. Eli, my first sous chef who once covered my shift when I sprained my wrist. Carmen, from culinary school, who lent me her knives when mine were repossessed. Mrs. Delgado, the bakery owner down the street who left pastries at my door during the pandemic. Joe, obviously. And of course, Harper Lane, whose review had flipped my life overnight. Each name meant something real. No optics, no captions. When Jo saw the stack, she tapped her nail against the paper. No family names? No. Not even your mom? I hesitated, especially not my mom. She didn't argue. Just nodded, the way people do when they understand grief disguised as resolve. By the end of the week, whispers started spreading. Private dinner at Milo's table. Invitation only. Food bloggers began speculating. Harper's assistant emailed for confirmation. I pretended not to see. Then came the inevitable. Mom, heard a rumor about some fancy event. Ours must have gotten lost in the mail. Sister, if I wear a dress, does that count as an RSVP? Dad, we're proud of you, kiddo. Got our invites yet? I didn't answer. I just slid the stack of invitations into their envelopes, sealed them with wax, and placed the chosen names in the front window. By morning, Mrs. Delgado walked by and texted me a photo. The window looks beautiful, querida. You deserve this. A few hours later, another message, this one from my aunt. Saw the display. Didn't see our names. Are you saving a table for family? I typed one word. Nope. Jo read it over my shoulder and whispered, You're my hero. I laughed softly. Nah, just finally my own chef. As night fell, I stepped back to look at the window, candlelight catching the curve of inked letters. Every name reflected people who'd stood beside me when no one else did. No family names, no fakes, no ghosts. Just the ones who stayed. And for the first time, the family table didn't feel empty anymore. By Sunday evening, the restaurant no longer felt like mine. It felt sacred. The lights glowed lower, warmer, softer. Every candle flickered like a heartbeat. The menu had only 6 dishes, but each one was stitched with memory. Grandpa Milo's roast glaze, Mrs. Delgado's almond pastry, a risotto I'd finally perfected after burning it 37 times. Jo was in her element, sleeves rolled up, hair tied back, a grin sharper than any chef's knife. You realize you've basically curated the Avengers of everyone who actually cared, right? That was the goal, I said, adjusting the place cards. She nodded toward the empty table in the back, a small two-top, simple, untouched. And that one? Reserved, I said quietly, for Grandpa. Her smile softened. He'd be proud of you. I hoped so. I'd spent the morning writing the note that sat on that table now. Reserved for the one who always showed up. Thank you, Grandpa Milo. Family by choice, not by blood. It was the first time in years I'd written his name without crying. At 6 o'clock sharp, the doors opened to a stream of real faces. Eli with his crooked grin, Carmen bringing flowers, Mrs. Delgado carrying pastries just in case, and Harper Lane herself, dressed in minimalist black, giving me a look that said, I don't do hugs, but I'm proud of you anyway. Even Adrian came by early, in his usual quiet way, helping carry extra chairs to the back, fixing a loose hinge on the kitchen door, and stealing a quick kiss on my forehead before disappearing again. Go feed your people, he said. You've earned this. The dinner began like a song warming up, laughter in low tones, silverware softly chiming. The jazz trio in the corner eased into a gentle melody. For once, I didn't feel like I had to earn the air in the room. Then, halfway through plating the second course, I heard it. A knock. Not polite, not uncertain. The kind of knock that said, we belong here. Jo froze. No, she muttered. They wouldn't. I peeked through the curtain. Of course they would. Mom. Dad. My sister. Even my aunt, the one who had texted me, no invite, 2 days ago. All of them standing outside the glass doors, holding an oversized bouquet and a wine bottle from the nearest gas station, labels half peeled. My stomach tightened. Jo crossed her arms. Want me to handle it? I hesitated. No, I'll do it. She followed me anyway. When I opened the door, Mom's face lit up like she was walking onto a red carpet. Sweetheart, we just thought we'd stop by. Support your big night. Jo didn't move. You weren't invited. Mom's smile wavered, but only for a second. Oh, we know. But family doesn't need invitations, right? Dad chuckled, as if he'd said something wise. We figured you'd make room for us. Figured wrong, Jo muttered. Dad, I said softly, do you even know what tonight is? Your dinner party, he said. The one everyone's talking about. It's not a party, I said. It's a thank you. For the people who stayed when no one else did. Mom's eyes darted toward the tables, scanning for a spare seat. We just want to be part of your life, honey. And you are, I said. Part of the history, but not part of tonight. For a second, the only sound was the jazz trio behind me, smooth and indifferent. Then my sister piped up, her tone sugar-coated. Come on, Cheryl, don't make this weird. I looked her dead in the eye. You didn't come when it mattered. You don't get to walk in when it's convenient. Dad exhaled sharply. We're your parents. We showed up. Too late, I said. They stared at me, confused, maybe even offended, like the rules of their world had stopped working. I stepped aside, motioned toward the back of the room. There is one table left, I said. Follow me. Their expressions flickered with relief. They thought they'd won. I led them through the room, every head turning, every guest quietly pausing mid-conversation. My family walked through like tourists in a museum, smiling stiffly at strangers, pretending they weren't out of place. I stopped in front of the table at the very back. The candle glowed. The folded note waited. Mom leaned in first, reading the words. Her voice cracked halfway through. Reserved for the one who always showed up. Thank you, Grandpa Milo. She looked up at me, eyes wet, lips trembling. Cheryl. I shook my head. That seat isn't for you to fix it. Dad's jaw tensed. You really think this is fair? Fair? I said quietly. You missed every dinner that mattered. Every milestone. You told me my dream was a hobby. And now you want to call this fairness? No one spoke. Even the band seemed to slow, the air thickening around us. Jo stepped forward, crossing her arms. You heard the chef. Mom took a shaky breath, her eyes glancing from the candle to the note, then back to me. We messed up, she said finally. Yes, I replied, and tonight isn't your apology tour. She nodded, small, brittle. Then, for once, she didn't argue. She just turned, took Dad's hand, and walked away. My sister lingered, her eyes searching mine for something. Regret, maybe forgiveness. But I stayed still. The door clicked behind them. I exhaled. The tension left my body like steam escaping a kettle. Joe leaned against the bar, whispering, "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Actually, yeah." She tilted her head. "You want me to throw that chair out back and set it on fire?" I smirked. Tempting. But no. Let it sit. We watched the candle flicker in silence. That table wasn't empty. It was full of peace. And for the first time, I realized absence can be sacred too. The candle at Grandpa Milo's table burned low, its wax melting slowly into a soft golden pool. The rest of the restaurant glowed, amber light reflecting off wine glasses, a quiet hum of laughter and low conversation filling the air. I walked back into the kitchen, took a steadying breath, and lifted a tray of mini toasts topped with whipped ricotta and fig jam. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Joe met me at the pass. "They gone?" "They're gone," I said. She nodded once, satisfied. "Then it's time." When I stepped back out, Harper Lane caught my eye from her corner table. She raised her glass in a silent toast. Carmen smiled, Eli wiped his hands on a napkin, and Mrs. Delgado waved me over with the excitement of a proud aunt. Every person in that room carried a story about showing up when things weren't shiny. I set down the toasts and cleared my throat. "Hi, everyone." The room quieted. Even the band stopped mid-chord. "I just wanted to say a few words before dessert," I began. "Mostly, thank you." A few soft chuckles, a few attentive eyes. "This night isn't about reviews or reservations or likes. It's about the people who showed up when there was no applause, when my risotto tasted like glue, when my oven died mid-shift, when I thought opening this place was a mistake." Someone, Eli probably, murmured, "You're welcome." The room laughed gently. I smiled. "It's about you, about the nights we shared burnt coffee and bad takeout, and you still told me to keep going. It's about Mrs. Delgado sneaking me pastries when I couldn't afford lunch, about Carmen letting me borrow knives I couldn't replace, about Joe." Joe groaned. "Don't make me cry, Cheryl. I'm allergic to emotions in public." The room laughed again, warmer this time. I lifted my glass. "To the ones who stayed, the ones who showed up, not for the spotlight, but for the struggle. You're my chosen family, and this," I gestured around the restaurant, "this is for you." Glasses rose around the room. "To chosen family," someone echoed. "To staying," Joe added. "To the chef who wouldn't quit," Carmen said. The sound of clinking glass filled the air. For the first time, I wasn't performing. I wasn't trying to prove myself. I was simply there, seen, safe. As the dinner continued, I moved through the tables, plating desserts, listening to laughter, catching snippets of gratitude and stories that reminded me why I started cooking in the first place. Food was never about perfection. It was about connection. Harper Lane stopped me on her way out. "You've built something rare, Cheryl," she said. "A room that feels like warmth itself. I'll be writing about this night." "Please don't call it adorable," I said. She smiled faintly. "I'll call it honest." When the last guest left, the chairs were still warm. Joe helped me clear plates, humming off key, swaying with the jazz that played softly through the speakers. "You did it," she said quietly. "You fed them, and yourself." I nodded, finally full. The clock read 1:12 a.m. The candles were almost gone, and at the back of the room, Grandpa's table still glowed faintly, the single flame steady, as if the universe itself had RSVP'd. The morning after the dinner, I woke to silence. The good kind. No buzzing notifications, no clattering dishes, no mental replay of last night's tension. Just sunlight bleeding through the blinds and the faint hum of the fridge downstairs. I pulled on my robe, padded barefoot into the dining room, and stopped short. A cream-colored envelope had been slipped under the door. No name, no return address, just one word on the front, written in my mother's familiar cursive. Chef. For a long moment, I didn't move. The word looked strange in her handwriting, like it didn't belong there, like she'd borrowed it. I knelt, picked it up, turned it over once, twice, then opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No flowers, no perfume, no glitter stickers, like she used to put on my school lunch notes. Just ink. "Cheryl, I couldn't stay last night. I read the note on that table, and I finally understood. You were right. I didn't show up when it mattered. I was afraid to see how far you'd gone without me. No excuses. No more pretending we supported you all along. We didn't. I want to be there next time. Not for the photos, just to taste the food you make when you're happy. Love, Mom." I read it twice, then folded it neatly. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. I just stood there, letting the words settle where the anger used to live. Some part of me, the younger part, the one who used to wait by the window for her car headlights on report card nights, wanted to run upstairs, call Joe, and say, "She's trying." But the newer part of me, the one who charged her own family for dinner, knew better. Intentions are lovely. Consistency is love. I placed the letter on the bar next to Grandpa's old recipe box, where it could sit quietly until it decided to mean something. Joe stumbled in around noon, sunglasses on, holding 2 croissants and a hangover large enough to need its own chair. "You good?" she croaked. "Yeah," I said. "Good." She squinted. "Good, good? Or emotionally imploding but pretending it's zen good?" I smiled. "Just good." She tossed me a croissant. "Eat! You've got press emails piling up. Harper Lane's article went live this morning." My heart skipped. "What did she say?" Joe grinned. "She called your duck spiritual. And then, and I quote, 'If Chef Cheryl Price isn't on a James Beard nomination list within 2 years, I'll eat my own column.'" I laughed, an honest, belly-deep laugh that startled even me. We sat there in the empty restaurant, sunlight spilling across the tables, flaky pastry crumbs catching the light. No applause, no performance, just peace. I looked around. The wax had hardened on Grandpa's candle, the note on his table still untouched, the air still carrying a trace of rosemary and roasted garlic. Not everything needed cleaning. Not everything needed closure. Some things deserved to rest exactly as they were, proof that silence can also be a full-course meal. Joe leaned back in her chair. "So what now, Chef?" I looked out the window, the city blinking awake beyond the glass, and said, "Now, I cook, but this time for myself." And for the first time in years, that felt like enough.